Captain Ryan Hale lay on the scorched ground, rain of metal and fire all around him. His uniform was torn, and his left leg bent at a cruel angle. He felt every breath burn in his lungs. The sky above was dark with enemy fighters sweeping past. In waves, Ryan's vision blurred as pain surged through his body. He wanted to close his eyes and let the darkness take him, but a strange calm held him back. He sensed something gentle moving through the smoke. Liora moved like a ghost among the wreckage. She wore a simple robe of soft fabric that swayed with each step. Her skin was pale gold, and her eyes held quiet strength. She knelt beside Ryan without a word. She brushed a lock of soot from his cheek and offered him a calm smile. The heat of battle faded for a moment as Ryan stared at her face. He did not know where she came from or why she helped him, but he felt trust in her presence. Liora pressed a cool hand on his chest, then leaned closer. Ryan tasted salt and warmth as her lips met the worst of his wounds. A gentle light spread inside him, soothing the torn flesh and knitting bone. Hours seemed to pass in seconds. Bleeding stopped. Pain withdrew like a tide receding from the shore. Ryan felt the injured part of his body become whole again. He opened his eyes, amazed to find his leg no longer bent, his uniform dry and clean. He looked into Leora's eyes, and a single word formed on his lips. "Thank you." She shook her head. Softly, no words passed between them. Her gift was quiet and private. She touched his shoulder and rose. Ryan tried to stand, shaky at first, but he found his strength returning. Around them, soldiers rose and prepared to fight again. The battle had shifted toward the enemy lines. Human forces pressed forward with renewed vigor. Ryan took a deep breath and stood tall. He felt alive as if he had been reborn. As the medics carried other wounded to safety, Ryan walked alongside Leora. He watched her touch each hurt soldier, her lips bringing life where death had settled. Some cried out in surprise, others closed their eyes in relief. Leora moved with grace, and Ryan saw how weary she looked. Her robe seemed to weigh heavy on her shoulders. He offered his arm without a word. She took it gratefully, and together they crossed the field. Back at the field hospital, Ryan studied Leora's face in the dim light. She had small scars on her arms, faded marks that spoke of her own past pain. He wondered what she had suffered to gain such power to heal others. He looked at his own uniform, now spotless where she had touched him. He felt a strange hunger in his chest, not for food but for her gentle care. He forced himself to focus on the task ahead. He was a captain, and his duty called. General Connor strode through the tents, barking orders. He saw Ryan and Leora together and paused. The general's eyes narrowed when he noticed Leora's alien form. Rumors had spread that the humans had captured an alien healer, a being said to mend any wound. Connor marched toward them, suspicion in every step. Ryan braced himself to explain, but before Connor could speak, a lieutenant called out that enemy forces were regrouping nearby. Connor turned on his heel. "We move at once," he ordered. He looked at Leora. "You stay here," he said, voice rough. "We have no place for alien distractions." Ryan's heart tightened. He had seen how many soldiers owed their lives to Leora's gift. Without her, the human forces would crumble under the next attack. He stepped forward. "General, she saved me," he said firmly. "She can help more of us. Please let her come." Connor's jaw set, but he nodded. "One more mission. After that, we decide." Rhea and Leora fell silent as they followed the general to the command tent. Ryan's leg no longer throbbed, but his mind raced. He wondered what Leora would face among military leaders who saw her as a tool, not a person. He drew strength from the image of her soft touch and the peace in her gold eyes. He felt a promise stir inside him. He would protect her as she had protected him. Inside the tent, maps glowed under dim lights. Officers argued over strategy. Leora stood at the edge, quiet as a shadow. Ryan took her hand before anyone could object. She did not pull away. Instead, she looked at him with a calm acceptance. Together, they watched the flickering displays of enemy movements. Ryan realized that in this vast galaxy, among billions of stars and countless ships, he had found something more precious than victory, a healer who mended not only flesh but hope itself. And as long as she stood by his side, he would face any storm the war could bring. Captain Ryan Hale woke before dawn, the metallic walls of the Aurora's sickbay humming softly around him. He tested his leg with a careful step and felt no pain, only a dull pressure where Leora's kiss had mended him. He reached out and found her asleep in a nearby cot, her golden skin glowing faintly in the pale light. He held his breath, afraid to wake her, and watched the slow rise and fall of her chest. For the first time since the battle, Ryan felt truly alive and uncertain how he would manage without her when Leora stirred. Ryan offered a soft smile. She blinked, then rose gracefully, brushing stray hair from her face. Her eyes met his, calm and kind. She placed a hand on his arm, and he felt a warm spark of comfort. "Thank you," he whispered, though no words could match the depth of his feeling. Leora nodded and turned her attention to the other cots, where injured crew members lay. Ryan followed her lead, remembering his duty. Across the corridor, the Aurora's crew prepared for departure. Weapons clicked into place, and armor plates slid over uniforms. The warship would soon launch a reconnaissance over the enemy stronghold, probing defenses before the full fleet attacked. Ryan joined the briefing, standing beside Leora, even though officers murmured at her alien presence. General Connor entered, his face stern. Ryan scooped a small wound on his arm, testing his resolve. Before he could slip away, Connor spoke. "Hail," Connor said, voice low. "I hear you have an unusual asset." He gestured at Leora. "This healer of yours, is she ready for the field?" Ryan took a breath. "She is," he said firmly. "Without her, many of our soldiers could not fight. With her, we have a chance to break the enemy lines." Connor studied Leora then, nodded. "Fine, she comes with you, but any sign of weakness, and we leave her behind." Ryan swallowed and agreed. Leora offered him a gentle nod, as if she understood every word. The Aurora dropped out of warp above a jagged planet, its atmosphere alive with storm clouds. Radar showed enemy turrets lining the surface. Ryan's orders were to land a small team, gather intel, and retrieve any wounded. He gathered his squad: 2 sharpshooters, an engineer, and a pilot, and Leora slipped in among them. Ryan noticed how soldiers shifted uneasily beside her, fear and hope mingled in their eyes. He raised his voice. "We move at first light," he said. "Stay sharp, and watch over each other." On the surface, acid rain fell in heavy drops. The team crouched behind rocks as they advanced toward an enemy outpost. Lightning cracked overhead, and the ground shook with distant explosions. Ryan felt a familiar ache in his chest, but he pushed it aside. They needed to reach the outpost before patrols changed. Leora moved between wounded trees, silent and sure. Every so often she paused to touch a bruise or a snapped branch, as if reading the life hidden in broken things. Suddenly, enemy drones swooped down, their lights slicing through the storm. The sharpshooters opened fire, bright bursts cutting swaths in the dark. Ryan led the charge, his rifle steady. The engineer dropped a makeshift EMP device, and the drones faltered and spun away. He signaled to Leora, whose lips brushed his arm. As she healed a scorch mark from the blast, Ryan shut his eyes at the gentle pressure of her mouth, and a wave of energy surged through him. He felt stronger, faster, more alive than ever. Guilt pricked him. He relied on her too much, but duty called, and he moved on. They reached the outpost gate, a heavy door reinforced with steel. The pilot hacked the lock, sparks flying. Inside, wounded prisoners lay against the walls, their bodies twisted in pain. Ryan's heart clenched. He moved among them, and Leora knelt by one, her lips pressing to a deep wound in the man's side. His breathing eased, and color returned to his cheeks. The pilot found data files and handed them to Ryan. "Enemy plans for the next assault," she said. Ryan read quickly. "Their next target, a civilian colony far behind human lines." As the storm worsened, Ryan gathered the team and carried the wounded back to the drop zone. Every step felt heavy under the rain, every breath stung with cold. Leora stayed close, her presence a calm in the chaos. She healed sprained ankles and broken ribs with swift kisses, then turned to Ryan and pressed her lips to his shoulder. He steadied himself, the pain fading into nothing. He realized with shame that he craved her touch more than air itself. At the evacuation point, the pilot's dropship landed on a slick rock. The wounded climbed aboard, and Ryan helped Leora on last. He glanced back at the outpost, now silent under flashes of lightning. He felt a promise in his chest. He would protect Leora with every breath, every bullet, every heartbeat. As the dropship lifted into the storm, he reached for her hand. She met his gaze and squeezed gently. Together they flew back to the Aurora, carrying hope for a war long feared lost. Captain Ryan Hale paced the Aurora's observation deck, watching distant stars blur past as the ship sped toward the next battle. His mind kept returning to the storm planet, its acid rain, the outposts, broken walls, and the way Leora's lips had chased every wound away. He touched his side, where her kiss had healed a burn, and felt a hollow ache. He tried to tell himself that he was a soldier first, a man second, but the truth settled like a stone in his chest. He needed her more than he wanted to admit. Liora waited by the medbay door, her golden eyes calm. She wore the same simple robe, clean now, and Ryan noticed the thin line of worry gathering at her brow. He offered her a small smile, but it felt brittle. "I'm ready," he said, though he did not feel it. She nodded and followed him through the ship's corridors, past rows of fighters suiting up and mechanics loading torpedoes. Everywhere Ryan sensed the soldiers hoped their faith in Leora's gift. He felt uneasy, as if they all saw her as a tool to win the war. In the briefing room, General Connor stood before a holographic map of enemy positions. His voice was harsh as he laid out the orders. "We strike here," he said, pointing to a dusty moon with deep craters. "Enemy command center sits beneath the surface. We hit fast, hard, and get out. Casualties must be low." He glanced at Leora. "You stay behind. We don't bring civilians into frontline combat." Ryan felt anger flare. Leora was no mere passenger. She was their shield. He opened his mouth to argue, but Connor spoke again. "Captain, you have 15 minutes to prepare. Then we depart." Ryan's jaw tightened. He looked at Leora. She met his gaze and nodded, understanding without words. He knew the risk. If Leora did not go, more soldiers would die. But if she went, the battle would weigh on her gentle heart. Ryan lifted her hand and pressed his lips to it. The soft warmth spread through him, steadying his nerves. "We go together," he whispered. Connor's eyes narrowed, but he did not protest. Ryan felt a surge of pride and fear. He had defied a general for her hand. He would pay for it if the mission failed. The dropship's engines roared as it lowered onto the moon's cratered surface. Ryan, Leora, and a small strike team disembarked into the dusty wind. The air tasted of metal and ash. Ahead, a hatch led into darkness. The squad moved in silence, rifles raised. Leora stayed close to Ryan, her presence a quiet light in the gloom. They passed corridors lined with sleeping drones and empty bunk rooms. Ryan sensed enemy soldiers hidden in shadows, but he relied on Leora's calm to steady his aim. Suddenly, alarms blared, red lights strobed against black walls. The team split, searching for the command room. Ryan led the way, his boots echoing. In the tunnel, Leora's hand brushed his arm as a shot rang out. One of the sharpshooters fell, a bolt of plasma burning through his side. Ryan reflexively gripped his rifle, but then he hesitated. He could shoot or he could let Leora heal first. The soldier groaned, clutching his wound. Ryan turned to Leora. She knelt, lips brushing the man's flesh. Pain fled his body, and his eyes fluttered open. Ryan realized that nothing mattered more than her gift in this moment. Continuing their advance, they reached the command center door, a heavy blast shield etched with enemy glyphs. Ryan planted explosive charges while Leora stood guard. Her eyes shone with resolve. Ryan worked the final timer click, then backed away. He glanced at Leora and she offered him a fierce smile. Behind him, the door exploded inward. They burst through, weapons ready. The room was filled with officers shouting orders, data consoles ablaze. Ryan raised his rifle, and the team swept the room in a thunder of fire. When the dust settled, the command center lay silent. Ryan spotted a console flickering at the far end. He ran to it, downloading navigation codes and turret locations. Alarms still sounded, and the moon began to shake as self-destruct sequences triggered. Ryan grabbed a data drive and dashed back toward the exit. Leora followed, her robe billowing behind her. Plasma fire raked the walls, and the tunnel's lights failed one by one. Ryan felt his heart pound in his ears. He dared not look back. They reached the crater's mouth just as the hatch began to slam shut. Ryan shoved his pack against it, and sparks flew. He heard Leora shout, and he turned to see her arm caught between metal and wall. He dropped to his knees and pulled with all his strength, freeing her. Her face was pale beneath the red glow of the last alarm. Ryan lifted her into his arms and ran toward the dropship, carrying both data and hope. Behind them, the command center exploded in a distant roar, sending debris into the sky. Inside the dropship, the pilot sealed the hatch and lifted off. Ryan gently set Leora on the floor. She slipped into unconsciousness, her golden skin piling. Ryan dropped beside her and cradled her head. The pilot watched. Silent, Ryan pressed his forehead to Leora's temple and whispered, "Hold on." He felt her hand twitch in his, and he drew hope from the faint warmth in her palm. Around them, the stars returned as the dropship climbed into space. Ryan vowed that he would protect Leora beyond any order, beyond any battle, for in the war between stars, she had become his true north, and he would follow her wherever the galaxy might lead. Captain Ryan Hale carried Leora down the quiet corridor of the Aurora, her body limp in his arms. Sparks from the battle still flickered through his mind. He pushed open the heavy door of the medbay and laid her gently on a padded table. The medics sprang into action, checking her pulse and reading her vitals on glowing screens. Ryan knelt beside Leora, brushing a lock of pale gold hair from her forehead. He watched the monitors tick, willing her warmth to return. Dr. Maris shook her head. She's stable, but exhausted. Her gift takes a toll on her. Ryan's heart clenched. Each time Leora healed a wound, he had felt relief and his own need grow sharper. He had not stopped to think what she gave in return. He touched Leora's hand. It felt cool. Can we help her rest? He asked. Maris pressed a hand to the healer's wrist. We can give her time. She'll need days to recover after what she's done. Ryan nodded, though he wished he could trade his own strength for her rest. Across the ship, officers gathered in the command center. General Connor stood before the holomap, arms crossed. Ryan stepped in, careful not to disturb the tense air. Connor's gaze cut to him. Report, the general said. Ryan gave a brief rundown of the moon mission. Successful data retrieval. Enemy command center destroyed. Minimal human losses thanks to Leora. Connor's expression remained unreadable. Good work, he said. We have what we need. Next, we strike at the colony on Arden 7. Civilians there hold food and medicine critical to our supply. Intelligence says the Empire plans to bombard it tomorrow. Ryan felt a twist in his chest. They will be wounded, he said softly. We should send Leora. Connor's eyes narrowed. She is our asset, not a risk. She stays here until we decide otherwise. Ryan pressed his lips together. He thought of the men and women on that planet, crushed under fire, crying for help. He thought of Leora, whose gentle gift could save them. He knew he had to speak. General, if she does not go, many will die. Without her, we lose more than territory. Connor leaned close. Captain, orders are orders. She waits here. Ryan bowed his head. Yes, sir. He left the command center, tension coiling in his gut. Leora was fragile now. She needed rest and safety. Yet he could not ignore the lives at stake. He made his way back to the medbay. Inside, he found Maris tending an injured ensign. The boy's leg was shattered, and he cried softly. Ryan caught his eye. Is there any hope? The ensign whispered. Maris shook her head. We can keep him alive, but repairs take weeks. Ryan glanced at Leora's empty table. What if? He began, but Maris laid a hand on his shoulder. Not now, she said. The healer needs sleep. Ryan paced the length of the room, torn. He wanted to break protocol, to carry Leora to the dropship and fly to Arden 7 himself. But a captain followed orders until he could change. Then he knelt and checked Leora's pulse. It was faint, but steady. He pressed a kiss to her brow, as gentle as her healing touch. Rest, he whispered. I will protect you. Later that evening, Ryan wandered the ship's observation deck. The vastness of space stretched before him, stars blinking like distant eyes. He felt alone, weight of command on his shoulders. He remembered Leora's soft voice, the warmth in her lips when she healed him. Without her, he felt hollow. But with her, he felt strength he never knew he had. He closed his eyes and recalled the battlefield, how her gift had turned despair into hope. He vowed that no order or battle would separate them again. In his quarters, Ryan wrote a private report. He described Arden 7's plight, healing power, and the moral cost of keeping her hidden. He signed it with a single word, urgent. He printed the report and carried it to Connor's office at dawn. Connor examined the thick stack of pages. His face was unreadable. You've made your case, he said at last. I won't promise she goes to every mission, but she'll join the next humanitarian operation. Relief flooded Ryan. He saluted. Sharply, thank you, General. Connor nodded and dismissed him. Back in the medbay, Ryan found Leora awake, eyes open but weary. He pulled up a chair and took her hand. You'll go with me to Arden 7, he said. Her gaze flicked to the door, then back to him. She nodded slowly, a small smile in her eyes. I will help, she whispered. Ryan felt a warmth bloom in his chest. We will face it together. She squeezed his hand and closed her eyes, resting as his heart swelled with purpose. Outside the ship, the Aurora drifted through the void, carrying them toward Arden 7's pale blue glow. Inside, Captain Ryan Hale sat by Leora's side, ready to risk everything for a chance to heal more lives and to protect the one soul who had healed his own. The Aurora's shuttles descended through Arden 7's thick blue clouds, shaking as enemy fire struck the hull. Captain Ryan Hale gripped the railing, his gaze fixed on the scattered farms and makeshift shelters below. Leora stood beside him, silent but steady, her golden skin glowing faintly in the dim cockpit light. Ryan felt his heart pound. This was no battlefield of soldiers and drones. Here every life counted. Every wound was a person's future. The shuttle jolted as a plasma shell slammed into the wing. Alarms wailed. The pilot fought the controls, guiding them toward a cleared landing zone near a ruined church. Ryan shouted orders. Strap in, prepare for a rough touchdown. The shuttle's door burst open against a wave of red dust and smoke. Ryan and Leora leaped out, rifles slung but unused. Wounded civilians limped from collapsed buildings, their cries echoing under distant explosions. Lior. I moved among them, her lips brushing against broken bones and scorched skin. A mother clutched a child with a shattered arm. Leora knelt and pressed her mouth to the wound. The child's scream softened, replaced by sleepy relief. The mother wept with gratitude, hands pressed to Leora's back. Ryan felt tears sting his own eyes. He guided others to safety, leading them to the Aurora's field tents. He carried an old man whose leg was severed, glancing back to see Leora kneeling beside a wounded farmer, her face serene in the chaos. Suddenly, a tremor shook the ground. A hidden turret opened fire, spraying shards of metal toward the shuttles. Ryan roared and dove in front of Leora, his body a shield. He felt the wind of bullets pass over him. Adrenaline surged. He returned fire, picking off the turret's power conduit with precision. Sparks flew. The turret went dark. Ryan staggered back, his vision blurry, and Leora caught him. She placed a hand on his chest and kissed the bruise forming under his uniform. Pain vanished. He gasped, the world settling around him. They pressed on, deeper into the colony's heart. Shelters lined a crater where an earlier strike had thrown building fragments like toys. Survivors huddled in makeshift hospitals, their eyes hollow with fear. Ryan barked directions to the engineers, setting up shields to block incoming fire. Leora moved from patient to patient, her robe trailing over cracked stone. Without a word, she healed a young woman whose face had been scorched, then soothed the boy's broken arm. Each time, Ryan felt the pull in his chest grow stronger, needed her touch, but he also feared the cost to her gentle spirit. Through the haze, Ryan spotted a group of soldiers leading refugees toward the shuttle staging area. One young soldier collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. Ryan sprinted across the dirt, catching the man before he fell. He cradled the soldier's head, calling for Leora. She arrived, her eyes steady despite exhaustion. She laid her lips to the soldier's wound and closed her own eyes. The soldier's ragged breathing eased and color bloomed on his cheeks. He reached up, grabbing Leora's arm in a silent thank you. Ryan knelt beside her, his arm around her shoulders. You're saving so many, he whispered. Liora shook her head, exhaustion etched into her features. Ryan saw the toll. Her lips were cracked, her robe stained, her eyes heavy. He wrapped an arm around her and led her to a sheltered tent. Inside, he helped her sit on a cot. He knelt and peeled back her sleeve, revealing faint bruises where she had kissed the wounded all day. He pressed a soft kiss to her wrist. Rest now, he said. She leaned against him, breathing shallow. Ryan stood and barked orders to the medics. Cover for her. She heals the worst cases. Send the rest to Aurora's sickbay. As the first shuttles filled with refugees, the colony's survivors lined up to wave farewell. Ryan watched mothers clutch children, soldiers saluted him, and Leora, too weary to stand, waved with one hand. A young boy, no more than 10, ran forward and bowed. Thank you, healer, he said. Leora's eyes glistened. She reached out and touched his shoulder with the lightest of kisses. The boy smiled, turning to join the others. Back aboard the Aurora, the airlock closed behind them. Ryan carried Leora to her recovery chamber, tucking her beneath soft blankets. He sat beside her, watching the pale blue planet fade behind them. He placed a gentle hand on her forehead. You saved their lives, he said. You saved mine. Leora opened her eyes and managed a small smile. We saved many, she whispered. Ryan squeezed her hand. Together they had given hope to a world under fire, and in that hope, he found the strength to believe the war could end and that they could face whatever came next. Side by side. Captain Ryan Hale woke to the soft hum of the Aurora's engines. Light from distant stars spilled across the observation windows. He sat beside Leora's recovery chamber, watching her rest. Her breathing was steady now, her gifts replenishing her strength. Ryan's mind turned to the next step in their fight, the human fleet's final push against the Empire. He rose quietly and made his way to the briefing room. The officers gathered around the holomap glowed with urgency. General Connor pointed at a cluster of enemy vessels orbiting the planet Gaia 9. We strike at dawn, he said. This will be our decisive battle. Ryan listened, noting shield arrays, weapon placements, and fleet formations. He spoke up. If Leora can heal wounded quickly, we can keep more ships in the fight. We should station her near the medical frigate. Connor paused, then nodded. We'll clear space for her, but she stays protected. After the meeting, Ryan found Leora in the medbay speaking softly with Dr. Maris. The healer's robe was fresh, and she smiled wearily when Ryan entered. He offered her a cup of warm tea and sat beside her. They need you, he said, but I need you safe. Leora dipped her head. I want to help, she replied. Ryan placed a hand over hers. We'll keep you close to command. Let the doctors do the field work. As the Aurora neared Gaia 9, Ryan walked the corridors, watching crew members ready weapons and load supplies. The ship felt alive, each person driven by hope. He paused by the hangar and saw medics practicing triage drills. He called out to them, line up. He stood before the group of young officers. Remember, stay calm under fire, work as a team, and rely on Guardian intel. When Leora arrives, learn from her. Watch how she heals without hesitation. The medics nodded, eyes bright. Ryan saw in them the same determination he felt. That night, Ryan found Leora on the observation deck, gazing at the planet below. Its green continents swirled beneath blue oceans. She looked fragile against the vast black sky. He joined her, standing in silence. The ship's motion was gentle here. Ryan broke the quiet. What do you see? He asked. Leora's gaze did not waver. I see lives worth saving, she said. Ryan smiled. Her words reminded him why they fought. He reached for her hand, and she let him hold it. Dawn came quickly. The Aurora slipped through the fleet, escorted by frigates and cruisers. Ryan took his place on the command bridge. Officers called out readings. Shields at 92%. Weapons charged. EMP bursts in 10 seconds. The tension was thick, broken only by Leora's calm presence in her protected chamber nearby. Ryan glanced at her before he turned to the holomap. Suddenly, alarms blared. Enemy fighters broke through the escort screen, streaking toward the Aurora. The crew sprang into action. Ryan's voice cut through the chaos. Deploy fighters. Bring up point defense. Echoing clacks of consoles and shouted confirmations filled the bridge. The Aurora's cannons roared, cutting through the dark. Ryan watched enemy ships explode in glittering bursts, yet more approached, relentless in their assault. Amid the battle, a cruiser took a direct hit. Explosions ripped through its hull, and life support failed. Hundreds of crew would be injured. Ryan clenched his jaw. Open a corridor to the medbay, he ordered. Prepare Leora. Minutes later, he escorted her through flashing lights and panicked crew to the damaged cruiser. The scene inside was grim. Smoke filled the corridors, and soldiers lay wounded in twisted metal. Leora knelt beside a fallen pilot, her lips brushing the worst of his burns. Warmth spread, and the pilot's breathing steadied. Ryan guided others. To her, whole squads formed around her, each hurting in different ways. Within moments, Leora had healed more than a dozen crew members. Ryan felt pride swell in his chest. He saw how her gift inspired the medics, how fear disappeared when she touched a wound. On the bridge, reports came in. The crew's resilience held. Fighters returned. Shuttles evacuated the crippled cruiser. Ryan stood by the command holomap, issuing orders that shifted the tide. The enemy faltered, their fighters scattered under human fire. Ryan realized that the tide of war was not just weapons and tactics, but hope, and that hope rode on Leora's wings. When the last enemy ship withdrew, the Aurora limped toward the cruiser's hangar bay. The crew cheered, exhausted but alive. Ryan made his way back to Leora. She leaned against a bulkhead, her robe dirty with work. Ryan pressed a gentle kiss to her cheek. We did it, he whispered. She smiled tiredly. We saved many, she said softly. As the fleet regrouped, Ryan stood beside Leora in the observation deck. Gaia 9 shimmered below, its future intact. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders and felt her lean into him. The battle was won, but the war continued. Yet with each life saved, they grew stronger together. Ryan knew the next fight would be harder, but he also knew that with Leora's gift, and the spirit of humanity behind them, they would endure. And as the stars drifted by, he vowed to carry her everywhere he went, into every storm, into every dawn, until peace at last found them all. The Aurora drifted in silent space, its hull scarred and its crew weary but triumphant. Captain Ryan Hale stood on the command bridge, watching the distant flashes of victory as the human fleet pressed its advantage. Reports came in. Enemy starbases fallen, supply lines cut, and the Empire's council in turmoil. The end of the war was near. Ryan felt a surge of relief and pride, but his thoughts turned first to Leora, the healer whose gift had carried them through every trial. He left the bridge and made his way to her recovery chamber, eager to share this final victory with her. Inside the chamber, Leora rested on a soft cot, her robes bright against the pale walls. Ryan stepped quietly beside her and took her hand. Her eyes opened, and she smiled, though exhaustion still shadowed her features. Ryan sat and brushed a strand of hair from her face. "It is over," he whispered. "We won." Leora's lips curved in a tired but genuine smile. She nodded and closed her eyes again. Ryan watched her breathe, relief flowing through him. He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, thankful that she was safe and that the war had ended with hope intact. The next morning, the Aurora sailed into orbit around Earth's home world. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy, and enormous crowds gathered below to welcome the heroes. Ryan stood on the shuttle deck with Leora at his side. She wore a simple gown given by Earth's leaders, the fabric soft against her skin. The shuttle doors opened, and sunlight flooded the ramp. Ryan felt the warmth on his face and glanced at Leora. She closed her eyes as the sun touched her skin, her golden cheeks glowing. Together they stepped into the cheering throng. Soldiers and civilians alike reached out to thank Leora. Parents bowed, children waved banners painted with her likeness, and veterans saluted. Ryan led her through the crowd, shielding her when the noise grew too loud. He felt pride in her gift, but also deep love. When they reached the Grand Plaza, a dais had been prepared for speeches. Ryan took the podium first. He spoke of courage, unity, and the price of freedom. Leora watched from his side, her eyes bright with tears of joy. When Ryan finished, he turned to her. "It is your moment," he said softly. The crowd fell silent. As Leora approached the microphone, her voice was quiet at first, but it grew strong as she spoke of compassion, healing, and the power of kindness. She thanked the humans who had protected her and trusted her gift. She spoke of the bond between worlds, of how healing one wound could heal many more. Her words spread like gentle waves through the plaza. When she finished, the crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Ryan felt tears prick his own eyes as he watched her bow her head in humble gratitude after the ceremony. Ryan and Leora walked through the palace gardens under golden arches of flowering vines. Petals drifted in the breeze. As they spoke quietly of the future, they dreamed of rebuilding worlds torn by war, of training new healers whose gifts would bring peace. Leora's smile grew with each idea, and Ryan felt hope blossom in his heart. He took her hand and guided her to a marble bench overlooking a reflecting pool. Ducks drifted on the water, and the scent of jasmine filled the air. Ryan turned to her and said, "Together, we will build a new tomorrow." Leora rested her head on Ryan's shoulder. She closed her eyes and breathed deep. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. The sun set in a blaze of orange and pink, coloring their world with promise. Ryan whispered, "Thank you for healing me, and so many others. You are my greatest gift." Leora smiled and kissed his cheek. "And you, mine," she replied. They sat in silence as stars appeared overhead, stars that once guided their ships through war, now guiding them into peace. In that gentle light, they found a future where every kiss healed not only wounds, but hearts as well.